Okay, well now we're doing worksheet 5A, and this has to do with statistics to some degree, and we need to know what a population parameter is, what a population is, what a sample is, and what the sample statistics are. And you can find that information on pages 297 and 299. There's a good flow chart. So the population is the total amount of folks, if you're talking about people, that you're interested in. For example, if you're talking about all Americans, and you're talking about an election, then the population's all the Americans that can vote, all voting age Americans. So that's your population. And then your sample is say your contact decide to contact 100,000 of those people to get a feel for which candidate is, how the candidates are doing. So those 100,000 people are the 100,000 voters are the sample. Then the statistics are how these folks intend to vote. Who those 100,000 people intend to vote for, which candidates, and what percentage of the 100,000 is going to vote for candidate A and candidate B and so on. And then the parameter, you project that voting behavior onto the population, and then you make the prediction, well, of all the voting all American voters, then this candidate is projected to get this percent of the vote, that candidate is projected to get that percent of the vote, and so on. So the population, all voting Americans, the statistic, the 100,000 you chose to question. The statistics, the feedback from the sample, and the parameter. When you project the feedback, the sample statistics onto the overall population, then those figures say you're making a prediction about the population. That's your parameter. Okay, and for number one we chose C. The percentage of American women working for large companies who feel that women are underrepresented in management positions in their company. Now, keep in mind, you're going to have to read and reread this material in order to get it. You get a little piece of it, then you get more, and you get more. But one reading will not do it. You will not understand it. So please read and reread until it makes sense to you. Question what you're reading. So then for number two, it says, describe how you would apply the 5 basic steps of a statistical study. And that study's on those steps are on page 298. And let's say we're going to do a study on, for example, 100 people. Say we have a company that has 100 people employed, and they want to know how the people are feeling about some change they're thinking about making to, say, the retirement system. So the first thing is state the goal of your study precisely. That is determine the population you want to study and exactly what you'd like to learn. So our population is the 100 people that work for this company, and we want to know how they're going to respond to this particular change in the retirement system. So choose a representative sample from the population, or rather than contact all 100, let's say you're going to contact 20 people. And now collect raw data from the sample and summarize these data by finding the sample statistics of interest. So let's say you ask every one of these 20 people how they feel about this particular change in the retirement system, and let's say 18 out of 20 approve of it. So that's your sample statistic then, 18 out of 20. In other words, 90% of those of the sample approve of this change in the retirement system. Use the sample statistic to infer the population parameter. So the population parameter is going to be that 90% of the 100 workers at this place are going to approve of the change to the retirement system. And draw conclusions, determine what you learned and whether you achieved your goal. Well, our conclusion is then that the people that work there feel very positive about this change to the retirement system. And I think we've achieved our goal. So, for number 3, you go through a similar process. You do the same thing. It's a large software company. I see. They give you a situation, and you go through those 5 steps and address each of them. Okay, 4. For the study described below, identify the sample. And a bank manager wants to know whether the average amount of time customers of his bank have to wait in line. And 300 customers were polled and asked their average wait time at the bank. 27 of the 300 were extremely dissatisfied with the amount of time they had to wait in a line in recent months. So the sample is the 300 that were polled. For number 5, and by the way, 5, we're talking about different types of sampling. And if you look at page 300, and this was for 5 and 6, you'll see those explained. And so for number 5, a sample consists of every 20th student who leaves the library, and that's systematic sampling. A pattern repeats itself. For number 6, a market researcher randomly selects 500 drivers under 30 years of age and 500 drivers over 30 years of age. And that's stratified sampling. And again, please look at page 300. Now, you'll have to read the boxed items for pages 302 through 305 to get a handle on experiments and studies. And so I'll assume you'll do that. This requires some serious reading on your part. Question what you read. And for number 7, it's an observation. What percentage of the population reads a newspaper on a regular basis? Well, you would determine that using an observational study. And does the new medication relieve depression? Well, the best way to determine that is a double-blind experiment. Double-blind means neither the person giving out the medication or the person receiving knows whether they're giving or getting a placebo or the real thing. Single blind, the person receiving doesn't know whether they're getting a real thing or a placebo. A double blind, neither the person giving nor the person receiving knows whether the pill they've received is a placebo or the medication.